The final week of the SEC regular season. What can we expect this Thanksgiving weekend? Who's on upset alert? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. In today's show, we'll run through each of the games happening in the final week of the SEC regular season. Boo! I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers who are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. In today's episode, brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase, and want to get out to an SEC game this weekend if you haven't gotten your tickets already. Welcome in our buddy Chris Marler, as we do each and every later in the week on the show, previewing the slate of games. And Marler, we got 10 games in the SEC, but a little bit bittersweet that we're already here. The regular season is over.
Yeah, I know. It's like the fact that it's almost December is like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, and so let's dive into it because we got a lot of games to get into. We got two games happening on Friday, so let's dive into it. 2:30 Central on ABC on Friday. It is the Egg Bowl. It's 2-9 Mississippi State at number 14 Ole Miss. And, man, the dynamics have changed for this game because, I mean, we thought, oh, Ole Miss, they just went out. They're going to be in the playoff 10-2, and they go and lose at Florida last week. And suddenly this game loses a little bit of the luster.
A lot of it, the luster, and a lot of that has to do with Jeff Levy and Mississippi State and just how bad they've been this year. But yeah, it's a bummer because it's like I said this a couple weeks ago. Like every time I start to believe in Lane Kiffin, he immediately does something to make me not believe him anymore. We'll see what happens. I think that they'll come out and play well for Ole Miss, but it feels like a massive letdown.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, again, Mississippi State, they got nothing to play for other than, hey, we'd like to win one conference game this year. And so,
right.
You know, but it's on the road and it's going to be tough to play there. But, yeah, it sounds like Trey Harris not going to go again. I mean, that was the big, you know, I think one of the big crushing blows for this team this year. And losing Quinshon Judkins and the run game being inconsistent, they became one-dimensional at times. And then Trey Harris, who's your best receiver, one of the best receivers in the country, in and out of the lineup, you know, just made this offense inconsistent. But some questions with Lane Kiffin moving forward. I mean, it's like, all right, you know, like I know the fan base, they're like, look, we ponied up millions for the Grove Collective. Yeah. We had Jackson Dart. This was supposed to be the year. And you can't even get to 10-2. It's a 12-team playoff. We're not even asking you to go 12-0. 10-2 would have gotten you in.
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing I kept comparing it to all summer was them in Miami. It felt like they had this very, very real feeling of a Major League Baseball team right before the trade deadline that thinks they can make a run and get to the World Series. And so they go all in on it. You make some trades, you figure out some stuff. And that's what they did. And it wasn't, I mean, they'll be close to making it, like, right? Like they'll be like 13, 14, or 15 in the country when this week ends. I think they're sitting at 14 right now, but like, it's got to be one of the most disappointing feelings they've had in a while.
I'll do a whole we'll do a whole show in a couple weeks on talking about the future of the SEC. I think it does look bright with some of these young quarterbacks, and Michael Van Buren is one of them. Mississippi State.
Yeah.
I mean, he's put up some really nice numbers under difficult conditions. I mean, it's been that the Mississippi State team is lacking a lot of talent, but Van Buren, if they can keep him around, I mean, that kid shows a lot of promise for the future for Mississippi State. Also on Friday, we got two SEC games Friday. 7:30 Eastern on ABC Friday night is 7-4 Georgia Tech at number 7 Georgia. And look, again, same thing goes here for Georgia. Like winning, you're in. We know you're going to the SEC title game. A loss here would be catastrophic for, you know, playoff chances and all that. But again, you go to Atlanta, you win. But you know, Georgia Tech, I've heard a couple people say, like, yeah, don't look at the spread. Georgia Tech is a feisty team, and they might keep this one close.
One of the things Georgia Tech does better than anybody else in the country, too, is protect the quarterback. They've given up some of the fewest sacks, I think, of any team in the country all year. Listen, I make no bones about it. I grew up in Atlanta. I grew up going to Bobby Dodd Stadium. I love Georgia Tech. I think they've been a really fun team. Watching them open the season with a win against Florida State, watching them be able to beat Miami, I hope they get Florida in a bowl game to be state champs of the state of Florida. But this game, I think this is the opposite of Lane Kiffin, where you have Kirby Smart, who is going to be dialed back in and locked in, because this is the last hurdle they have. They got to go to Atlanta next week, but like, they are in the playoff, and barring anything crazy happening this weekend, they're an absolute lock to make the playoff. You don't see letdowns like that from Kirby.
Yeah, it's true. And this team, it's like, some people have asked me, like, how good is Georgia? And I'm like, I think they're awesome, but it's like, we still have times not seen them be awesome. But when they're on, they're on. They're a world beater.
Yeah.
Nobody in this country can beat when they're on, but they're just not. It's not always there every week, and it's been one of the weirdest things about this season. And what's led to a lot of discussions about people saying, "Oh, the SEC's down." People think the SEC's down just because you don't have an undefeated, 12-0 team right now. But like, this is what makes a better conference. Top to bottom, the conference is well, it's more competitive. When anybody can beat anybody from top to bottom, to me, that means you're a good conference. That doesn't mean you're bad. Bad is when you've got two teams at 12-0 and everyone else sucks. Like, that's
I will also say, I think that Greg Sankey traded in a fourth playoff spot for TV ratings in the regular season. And like, sometimes the SEC needs to be knocked down a peg, and they're going to get knocked down a peg in this postseason because they're not going to get 4 teams in the playoff. You're going to see 2 ACC teams get in over teams that are 9-3, like Ole Miss and Alabama, and really talented teams that are probably better than Clemson, probably better than SMU, but they're not going to get in because Greg Sankey wanted to bring Texas and Oklahoma in here and have better TV ratings. And the regular season's been a lot of fun, but the whole point of playing these games is to win championships. And for me, it pisses me off because it's like, you already had the best product. If you already had the best product in the country, there's not really a reason to change anything up. It's like that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Greg Sankey went out there and made sure to add Texas. I'm going to get on a soapbox about this, but they were always the best conference. You were always a good conference. So having to feel like you need to like force feed us this like even bigger and even stronger conference seems pretty stupid to me.
Well, to that point though, all the school presidents and ADs voted on this, and they voted yes. Why? Because
they're stupid too.
Money. Well, there is more money, right? So I mean, I will say to your point though about the TV schedule, how many games this year, Marler, have led to upsets because they've been night primetime games on ABC, where in years past they would have been 2:30 CBS games. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Auburn beats A&M last week, if that's an afternoon game, but it was a night game at Jordan-Hare. Again, working theory. I'm not saying it's concrete, but like, how many of these upsets have happened at night on the road? Whereas maybe Bama would only have 2 losses right now. Maybe Ole Miss would have 2 losses right now. A&M would have 2 losses. It might be a little bit different, if that had changed. But look, ABC, the triple header. Has there been anything better on Saturdays watching SEC from morning, afternoon to night? I mean,
it's been awesome. It has been awesome every single week. There's been very few weeks where it's like, oh man, we got a dud at this time slot. Like, it's just been great.
Let's squeeze in one more here. 12 Eastern on ABC on Saturday. So those are Friday. We now turn the page to Saturday. It's number 8 Tennessee at 6-5 Vanderbilt. And an interesting one here because we know Tennessee is fighting for a playoff spot. The SEC needs Tennessee to win this game. So I say that wondering if we might have some questionable penalties on Vanderbilt in this one. But Vandy, they already got the 6 wins, right? It's mission accomplished. You want to get to a bowl game. You're there. It does suck, though, because they reached 6 wins a couple weeks ago, and they kind of been sitting here, and they keep losing games. And it's like, man, like I thought Clark Lee, if he would have gotten 8-4, hands down my SEC Coach of the Year. Yeah. Even 6 wins, he deserves some consideration, but just would be kind of a dud to the Diego Pavia story if they finish 6-6 and losing a couple games to finish off the year. Yeah, I mean, beating Tennessee to keep them out of the playoff would be insane if they were able to pull that off. Weird start time. 11 a.m. kick for those people. Like that's in Central Time Zone. I don't love that. But we'll see. Like Tennessee's another one of those teams where it's like they've played some good teams. Like they played Bama. They went out and scheduled NC State at the start of the year. That's not their fault that NC State sucked. They played Georgia on the road. And I feel like that, they beat a very good Florida team. It's good right now, at least. And I feel like there's at least one more in there that I'm missing from the conference. But like you look at their schedule, we dogged Indiana over and over and over again about how weak their schedule was and how they played one team
with a winning record this season going into last week against Ole Miss. Tennessee's opponent winning percentage is 400. It's the lowest of any Power 4 team in the country. So, like, and I'm not saying it's dog Tennessee because, again, I think they went out and tried to make those games and put those games on their schedule for them to be in a position to win and have a good strength of schedule. It just didn't happen that way. UTEP sucks. They're like 2-9. Kent State's going to be 0-12, or maybe they did lose last night. I don't know. So it's not really necessarily their fault, but they have got to have this win because otherwise their resume is not strong enough to keep them in.
Yeah, Kent State did lose. They finished 0-12, but
That's
NC
unreal.
State when they played NC State, they were a top 25 team, but that turned out to be not such a great one. All right, more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. More with Chris Marler here in just a second, but I want to remind you guys about our friends over at Game Time, the Game Time app. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks going to filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And one of the hottest tickets in the world right now is the Texas versus Texas A&M game. I've been tracking it all week. Game Time, they actually have some pretty good prices, all things considered. When you look around the marketplace, I would consider you shop around and look. Game Time has got you the all-in pricing feature. I'm telling you right now, some of these other places you're going to pay tons and tons in extra fees, almost doubling your price for the tickets. Game Time, the all-in pricing feature, you turn that on, and it's going to show you your total upfront. That's what you're going to pay. And so, again, we'll pay, pretty penny to get in to see Texas versus Texas A&M. It's going to cost you that no matter where you go. But Game Time, I'm telling you right now, guaranteed will get you the best price. And, again, they will have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Seat views, you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off. Continue on here. Welcome into Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. We got our buddy Chris Marler. We're previewing SEC Week 14. And let's continue on, Marler. On Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. It is number 15 South Carolina at number 12 Clemson. I mean, this one might be, I know we got some sexy matchups, but this one has potential to be one of the best games of the weekend just because, man, Shane Beamer, I was debating this all week. I think he gets my vote for SEC Coach of the Year.
I think it makes sense. I tell you what, man, I'm still in there in the Billy Napier train because of I felt like I've said this over and over, but we all said, man, if he won 5 games, he'd be Coach of the Year, and he's going to get to 7. So, but Shane Beamer has done a tremendous job. I'm excited about this one more than anything, I think, this weekend, because there is such a potential possibility for South Carolina to come in here and turn the entire state momentum, like the entire state's momentum in South Carolina. And I think it's also where it's the first time in probably a decade, if you look at this game, you could make the case and say South Carolina has a better defense, they have a better offense, and you're going into the game at least, and they have better special teams, and they're better in all 3 phases of the game going into this rivalry game against Clemson. They've lost 8 of the last 9, but I am fired up for that one.
Yeah, Lenore Sellers has changed the whole dynamic, and crazy to think that they could get another year or 2 of him in Columbia. Rocket Sanders has been, I mean, look, has he had the injuries like have plagued his career? Yes. But when that guy's healthy and out there, he has been a difference maker in that run game for South Carolina. So yeah, it's been awesome. It's been fun to watch. That defensive front, man, I can't wait to see them get after Cade Klubnik. I mean, Kennard and Dylan Stewart. I mean, these dudes are they've had monster years. And look at mock drafts. I mean, Kyle Kennard, a first-round pick. He made a wise choice. You know, we're leaving Georgia Tech and going to South Carolina. It's been a godsend for him in that system. So do you like Carolina to pull it off?
I do. I listen, I think Clemson is a good team. I think they've got some good things there. I didn't realize Klubnik has 29 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions on the year. Here's the thing I keep coming back to. They haven't played anybody. Like I just feel like late in the season, it's great to be able to get all these wins, and it's great to be able to be contending for a playoff spot and all kind of stuff. But I think at this point of the season, especially when you're in a matchup that could determine if you get into the college football playoff or make the postseason, and an even better bowl or something like that, and there's this much on the line. I would rather have a situation like South Carolina where they're battle tested, they know who they are, and they've kind of overcome all these, like, all this adversity. Like, what's the most adversity that Clemson's had to face this year and overcome, like, from a good team? They lost to Louisville, who was ranked at the time. They lost to Georgia, like they got boat raced by Georgia. They haven't played anybody else, or they haven't beaten anybody else that's currently ranked, I don't believe. And they have the 113th ranked opponent winning percentage out of any team in the country, which is third worst in all of Power 5. I don't think that, or Power 4 now. I just don't think that they are battle tested, like I said, for South Carolina. I don't think that they're going to have. I know they haven't faced a defense like they're going to face on Saturday, and with the way Lenore Sellers is playing, I think this is a great spot for South Carolina.
Yeah, and by the way, Louisville was not ranked when Clemson lost to them. So they've played one ranked opponent all year, and it was Georgia week 1. And this is going to be their second ranked opponent they will face. Good luck, Dabo. Also at 12 Eastern on ABC, this on SEC Network, it's 7-4 Louisville at 4-7 Kentucky. This one's just intriguing from the standpoint of Mark Stoops. Obviously, is underachieved this year. They're not going to go to a bowl game for the first time forever. They're going to start Cutter Boley, so they're going to get a chance to kind of see the freshman. He looked good in that second half against Texas at times. So, give him a chance to show what he can do. But it's a rivalry game, right? Like, Kentucky, okay, they're not great, but they're going to put everything they have into this one and try to beat Louisville.
Yeah, and as they should. Just a very disappointing season for Kentucky. I thought coming into the year with Brock Vanderbilt, former 5-star quarterback, you still had some weapons at receiver. But the thing was the defense. The defense was, I thought you had potentially the best front seven in the entire SEC on paper with what you had returning. You had 6 guys returning. The only guy that wasn't was the Georgia transfer. And it's very disappointing. I think that, like, very few times have we seen Mark Stoops in Kentucky, like, fail to meet expectations. They always seem like they exceed expectations because the bar is just set low for Kentucky. The bar wasn't set especially high this year for Kentucky. It was about 7 wins. And so it's disappointing. I hate to see it. I'm excited for this Cutter Boley thing. I think, like, Vandegrift has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the SEC all year, and I hate that for him. But he has been really bad. And so having a true freshman come in, this is like the most, fun rivalry week type of story you get, where this kid can go in there and make a name for himself. He's from Lexington, so love that. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it will be, again, I don't know how many of you will be watching that game, but for Kentucky fans, a little excitement for the future if Boley plays well, it wins. How about 2:30 Central on SEC Network? It's 6-5 Arkansas at number 21 Mizzou. And I don't know why this is that rivalry game, Marler. These two sides just don't like each other. Arkansas fans hate Mizzou fans. Mizzou fans hate Arkansas fans. And, at least Arkansas, Sam Pittman got to his 6th win last week, so they got bowl eligible, so that's good. But Mizzou trying to finish strong, they're going to look back at that South Carolina game and wonder what if. If they could have won that, they could be possibly playing for a playoff spot right now. But I know Drinkwitz wants to finish strong here with a win at home.
Yeah, this game, it's weird that they forced a rivalry trophy game on us, but I think this is going to be – it'll be interesting to see Taylon Green against this Missouri defense, because Missouri's defense has been – going to that South Carolina game, they were top 10 defense nationally in total yards allowed, been very good in pass defense. Taylon Green has been a really, really good quarterback. I think he's one of the most exciting playmaking quarterbacks, not even the SEC, but the country. He just hasn't protected the football. And at times it feels like he almost looks disinterested in trying to protect the football. So I'm excited for this one. I think that Missouri, this is Brady Cook's send-off, right? Like, he's got to be a senior. I mean, he started like 36 games. He's been awesome since he's been healthy, and we'll see how it goes. I love the fact that they've kind of gone back to vintage Missouri from 2023 and got the run game going. They had over 200 yards rushing last week at Mississippi State, and they also were able to get Theo Weiss. He's been the most consistent receiver they've had. Arkansas has some ability here, and they've got a better defense people give them credit for, but I just don't see them going on the road and beating Mizzou.
Yeah, to answer your question, Brady Cook, he's a 5th-year senior, so this is it for him. Taylon Green is a 4th-year junior, so he technically has another year. He will likely be back at Arkansas next year, which sets it well for them. The other thing with Mizzou, they already said they're going to honor Luther Burden. He's going to walk with the seniors on Saturday. So, I mean, all but writing on the wall, he is off to the NFL after this. Two more here real quick. 6 p.m. Central on ESPN. It is 6-5 Oklahoma at 7-4 LSU. Everybody counted out LSU last week, said they opened up a big can of quit. The season's over. They lost at Florida. Then Ole Miss loses at Florida, and you go, wait a minute, maybe Florida's kind of good now. And LSU goes out there and plays pretty well against Vanderbilt. Didn't start off well, but they defense actually did a good job against Diego Pavia. And so now here, LSU, not much to play for, but 8-4 sounds way better than 7-5. And for Oklahoma, look, you got up last week. You were able to play inspired defense at home and beat Alabama. Be interesting to see. Jackson Arnold, the running ability, beat Alabama last week. LSU has struggled with running quarterbacks this year. So kind of interesting dynamic. But I got to think LSU home, playing for pride, senior day, all that. They're going to try to win this game. At least Oklahoma, Brent Venables, you got your 6th win. You're going to a bowl game.
Yeah, 25th straight year that Oklahoma's going to a bowl game. It's a really good job from Venables and company because they were staring 5-7 straight in the face. So that was really impressive. But yeah, with LSU, I think the thing that was most positive from last week was that you had the run game going finally. Josh Williams was awesome. He was fantastic in that. I still think Caden Durham's going to be one of the better running backs in the SEC once all said and done in his career. And then Nussmeier had only 9 incompletions last week. It's the fewest he's had since week 1 against Southern Cal. Like they have been over the last couple of weeks. I mean, you saw stat lines. It was like 25 of 50. Games with 15, 20 incompletions, and to have less than 10, I thought that was really impressive.
Yeah, LSU's another one that's very interesting for next year. Is right now it's sounding like Garrett Nussmeier could come back next year, automatically make one of the most productive returning quarterbacks next year, presumably if it's him and Taylon Green. Caden Durham, you mentioned, was a true freshman this year, so they got another year, 2 years out of him if he stays at LSU. So you start to look at LSU, and as down as you were on them a couple weeks ago, future might start to look bright there for them. Although, go look at their schedule next year. It's absolutely brutal. So, doing no favors there. Hey, good call, Sankey, on the whole. Hey, the schedule you played this year, you're going to play it again next year. You're just going to flip home and away. Like, God, it's so stupid. But anyway, I digress. You think LSU wins at home?
I do. I think it's going to be a good game, though. Because here's the thing. Oklahoma's completely one-dimensional, like on offense. Like, they cannot throw the ball. But you saw it last week, man. Last week, they came into that game with having 147 yards rushing be like their best performance of any game in an SEC against an SEC opponent all year. They went for like 200 in the first half against Bama. They had 260 in the game. So, I think that they looked better, but I still think they're very one-dimensional.
Yeah, get ready to see plenty of highlights of that 2003 championship game between LSU and Oklahoma. LSU beat Oklahoma. One more here for you, 7 Eastern on ESPN2. It is 6-5 Florida at 2-9 Florida State. Florida, a 14.5-point road favorite on FanDuel. I never thought – those are words I never thought I would have said at the start of the season. But, my God, Florida State stinks. An arrow pointed upward for Billy Napier in Florida. Their recruiting class, they're now, I think, 17th in the composite, moving up. Like, who knew that things would the tide would turn for Florida midseason?
Yeah, he's flipped 4 kids in the last 2 days since we're recording this. So I have been so happy to watch Billy Napier be this good against his naysayers, and it makes me happy for him and the program and all that kind of stuff. And guys like DJ Lagway, who like in the face of all this decided, listen, I'm the number 4 player in the country. I'm clearly a generational type talent at quarterback, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to stay with Florida. And stick to my commitment, and it's paid off.
Yeah, and again, you talk about arrow pointed upward. Napier stays, Lagway stays. They put some more talent around them.
Yeah,
gosh, Florida could be a team that now again, stupid schedule stays the same next year. It's just the home and away flip. So your brutal schedule is still brutal again next year. But but we'll see what they can do. All right, we got 2 more games to get to. We'll get to those coming up next. Back to Chris Marler here in just a second. But one of my guys, today's episode presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And you can get ready to tackle the NFL action and college action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and win $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app going to give you everything you need to live bet on the NFL and college all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, so you live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. You will join today. You can get started with $100 and $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And again, all those college lines are up there. If you want to do a little parlay action, take some upsets happening this weekend, get a pretty good payout. If you take Aggies straight up, parlay that maybe with Arkansas straight up, and maybe with Auburn straight up, you do all three of those together, that's going to be a big payout. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but some upsets have been happening every week in the SEC. Who knows? But go check them out again. It's FanDuel.com, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, continue on here with our buddy Chris Marler previewing SEC Week 14. And Marler, two more games to get to here. Let's start 2:30 Central on ABC. The Iron Bowl just got a lot more interesting. It's 5-6 Auburn at number 13 Alabama. A week ago, I would have said, look, Bama's trying to play for a playoff spot. Auburn, the season has gone terribly. No chance. And yet, what a difference a week makes. Alabama goes on the road and loses at Oklahoma, doesn't score a touchdown. Auburn pulls off a home upset over A&M. Suddenly, Auburn's feeling confident in themselves. Alabama, you start to question a little bit. What do they have to play for? Obviously, still like a 20% chance, maybe still at a playoff spot. But I still like at home. I would stick with Bama. If it's at Auburn, I'm probably going with Auburn here. But this one is going to get spicy because there's been trash talk going on all week.
On one side, there's been trash talk going on one side. So here's the thing. I think this goes one of two ways. I think Bama's the better team. Peyton Thorne, I think, has been great this year. He has been one of the better stories in the SEC. And what I mean by that too is that, like, you know, we love to sit here and like crap on these kids. Like, oh, Peyton Thorne sucks because he threw 4 interceptions against Cal and blah blah blah. And like Auburn fans wanted him out. You wanted Hank Brown to start and all that kind of stuff. Like, Peyton Thorne's been one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC all year. Like, from the entire sample size, like in the full resume, he's been great. Like, over his last 5 or 6 games, only 2 interceptions, over 10 touchdowns. Like, he has been fantastic over the last several games. The emergence of Cam Coleman is terrifying for everyone else because you still have Lambert Smith on the other side, and they're gonna be very, very dangerous through the air. And you still have Jarquez Hunter. So like that offense is really, really good. The defense is always really good in Auburn, or at least it's like efficient and solid. I wouldn't say it's like always like, you know, top 10, top 20, but they are a good defense still with a good coordinator there. So here's the thing. This Bama team has not shown a ton of pride this year, which is sad to say. I do think that they are the better team and they should be able to win. But if they roll over and die like they did last week, I mean, like the thing with Bama this year has been they haven't handled success well. And it is, you watch the parallels of the season unfold where it's like you go to Wisconsin, you win by 30, you get through the bye week, you come out of the bye week, you obviously are ready to go for Georgia, you play with your hair on fire, you go up by 30 in the first half, and then you win that game, and the next week, with everything in front of you, you go to Vandy and lose. Then you look at the other half of the season, it's like, all right, well, you played Missouri, you beat them by 30, you get to the bye week, you come out of the bye week with your hair on fire against LSU, you beat them by 30, and now you got everything in front of you, and then your next SEC game, you score the fewest points you scored in the last 20 years against Oklahoma and lose 24-3. It's like just inexcusable performances. And if they come out and start feeling sorry for themselves or are not into this game, they are going to lose. They are going to lose Auburn. I don't think that's going to happen. I will say I think all the trash talk probably was not a great idea from Auburn because I think it'll wake Bama players up. But here's the thing, man. You went from last week with Bama players being like, all right, we're going to get to the playoff, and here's what we're like, our path, like, you know, we're fired up, to now you're going to have a lot of kids with people in their ears saying, like, do you really want to be here? Do you want to get in the portal because it opens next week?
Yeah, and Texas last year, the last time Bama lost at home, and prior to that, it had been, I mean, like, they just don't lose at home. Yeah, they don't lose at home. Now, granted, that's Nick Saban's Alabama, different from Kalen DeBoer's Alabama. But, man, you want to talk about going in the offseason, like Hugh Freeze, the one way you can get fans rejuvenated, bought back in, and writing checks for you and excited about next year, you win this game, oh, my God. The arrow pointed upward for Auburn next year. Like, those fans are talking championship going into next year.
They'll do that anyway.
And for Alabama, like, I don't know, like, let me pose you this question real quick, Marler. Do you think 2028 is Kalen DeBoer still the head coach at Alabama?
I'm not answering that.
I mean, it's very much up in the air. Now, look, I will say, like, his 3 games he's lost were all on the road. I think the reality we know is it is tough to win on the road in the SEC. That's just a fact. So,
right.
Is Kalen DeBoer a bad coach? No, but if he loses this one, man, he loses a lot of I mean,
it's I don't even know if it's Kalen DeBoer that I would be so frustrated about. Like the offensive coordinator has been really bad at times this year. The frustration comes from, like, how do you look like you looked against Georgia and then look like you did against Oklahoma? Like, I don't get it. Like, it's just, there's been so many Jekyll and Hyde performances, and it's like, and again, I sat here and told you, like, oh, that Vandy game didn't really matter because, it sucks, but you can still get 2 losses. Well, Vandy game matters now because even if you lose to Oklahoma last week, then you're probably still in.
Yeah. Well, he needs to call Michael Penix and see if he can get him back because those guys won a lot of games together. All right, last game, 6:30 Central on ABC. It is for the chance to go to Atlanta and lose to Georgia. It is number 3 Texas at number 20 Texas A&M. The rivalry renewed, the Lone Star Showdown, first time in 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
I got to stand by my prediction preseason, Marler. I said before the year that Ross Bjork, his lasting legacy, was fighting for this game to be the first reiteration of this rivalry game to be played in College Station. And I said the Aggies were going to treat this like their Super Bowl no matter what their record was. If they had 5 wins, 8 wins, whatever. Turns out they're 8-3 and a chance to go to the SEC championship game on the line here. But I don't know, man. College Station, Kyle Field is going to be rocking. And I was in Austin this past week. I saw Texas in person. Talking to Texas fans, they do not trust Quinn Ewers. Like,
why would they?
He's been good, not great this year. And he's hobbled this week. He had an MRI on the ankle. Like, ooh, this thing, Aggies are coming, man.
I'm gonna say it again, and it's gonna get some pushback. I don't think Texas is that good. I just don't. Like their defense is good. They have one of the best defenses in the country, and that will carry you a long way, I think, in the postseason. But it goes back to this where I don't trust any team that is playing the last week of the season and has that sort of resume. Like, dude, they've played 7 games in the SEC so far. Of the 6 that they've won, I think those 6 of them were against teams that were in the bottom 7 of the standings, right? They're 6-1 in the conference right now. Those 6 wins were against teams that are in the bottom 7 of the standings in the SEC. They have not played, like, going into last week, they had only played 2 teams with the winning record, or only beaten 2 teams with the winning record. That's not great. The one time you played anybody with a pulse, I mean, you got your blank kicked, man. Like you're lucky the refs even made it that close for you. Like, and that was at home. You have Quinn Ewers, who is one of the highest rated recruits in the history of high school recruiting football. And I think he's been average at best. Like, he's got weapons everywhere. And we just all thought that it was like, oh man, like, you know what? Sure, they lost, like their top 5 receivers, I feel like, to like the draft last year, but they're going to replace all that. Of course, they lost two running backs in the preseason. They'll figure out a way to replace it. And they've had some like guys like step in and be great. And Isaiah Baum was a great get out of the transfer portal, but they haven't played anybody like even the 7 games against SEC teams. They've played 3 of those games against backup quarterbacks. Like, this is the least challenged team in the SEC all season. Point blank, period. The least challenged team out of any team in the SEC all season. And they may very well go on the road and beat A&M in College Station. Sure. But I don't see it happening. I don't think Texas is that good. I just don't. Like, go out and prove me wrong. And I love Sark to death. I think he's one of my favorite coaches and the best play caller in the entire country. But they haven't had to be challenged at all. And when in the few glimpses where they were, it's ended really, really poorly. I mean, like, dude, the game against Arkansas, you win by 10. You beat a really bad Kentucky team at home by 14. Like, these are games that you're favored by 3 touchdowns against Kentucky. And that's a game going into the 4th. I don't get it.
Vandy was an onside kick away from making that thing really interesting. So yeah, I mean, it's been
had two turnovers all year and going into that game, and they had 3 in that game and lost by 3.
Well, in the words of the great philosopher Ward Manuel, you can only play who's on your schedule. You can't control what the conference scheduled you. You can only play who's in front of you. And so, no, I'm agreeing with you, but I do think rivalry game changes all that, right? I mean, Texas can look back and go, we have not played our best all year, but we want to beat these guys' asses more than anything in the world.
Yeah.
Let's play our best game of the year. You know what I mean? And that could happen.
I think they're too arrogant to do that. I think that Texas is. I think the worst thing that could have happened to Texas in this entire situation was being fed and that schedule on a silver platter by Greg Sankey and believing their own BS. I've never seen a fan base that is more into themselves in the country than Texas and all of this like 40 acres and hook 'em and like I've never seen a fan base that is more into themselves than this team. And we all pull for somebody and I get all that kind of stuff, but they really believe that they are like God's gift to football. And it's hilarious because it's like, dude, going into this season, you've had more 5-7 seasons than you've had 10-win seasons over the last like 12, 14 years by double. And I think they're back. Like, I do think they're back. And I think they that defense is really good, but like, man, it would be hilarious to watch them get humbled this week. And there's a clip in there somewhere, Gordy, so you're welcome.
There's a little bit of that on the Aggie side, though, too. There's a little of arrogance. I mean, like, how they've acted much of this year, like, I've had some people tell me, like, they've bet we can't credential you this week. We had too many requests. Like, okay, you're booting people out from covering your team, like, you're against Missouri. Like, come on. So, we'll see. Again, two fan bases that, again, like, the loser is really going to be hurting after this one. Now, Texas, I guess, they're still in the playoff, possibly hosting a home playoff game, if in the first round if they lose this one. But Aggies never been to Atlanta. We'll see if they can make that happen too. But you know what I'm rooting for, Marler? Storyline I want: Quinn Ewers leaves early in this game, not serious injury, just banged up a little, and the legacy of Arch Manning begins, and Arch leads them to a win over the Aggies in College Station. Like, you talk about the hype. I'll go buy an Arch Manning jersey in the offseason because the legacy begins. All right, Marler, thanks for joining us, man. Have a great weekend watching football, and we'll do it again next week, getting for an SEC title game.
Sounds good, brother. Talk to you then.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Again, shout out to everydayers. Keep on coming back and checking us out. We'll talk to you guys on Monday with our winners and losers of the weekend. Best of luck to everybody in the conference. We'll talk to you guys then.